So when I say, hallelujah, he is risen, you say, Lord is risen indeed, hallelujah. All right, let's try it. Hallelujah, he is risen. You can do a little better than that next time, but next time it's going to be, you're going to be ending the sermon. Easter it is. Once upon a time, there were 3 men on a hiking trail taking a big hike, and they came to a sprawling, wide, raging, tough-looking river. And they didn't know how they're going to get across. So the leader of the first to the bank looks out and said, "Oh my God, please, please, give me the strength, if you will, to get me safely across this river." Poof! The man was given incredible muscles in his arms and his legs and his thighs. He leapt into the water and he swam like crazy across the river. He got over there. It took him 2 hours, but he got safely to the other side. Second man comes up and looks over the side of the water. He said, "Oh Lord," he said, "please give me the wherewithal so that I may too cross over the river safely." Poof! A rowboat with oars. He jumps into the boat, rows like crazy, takes 2 hours, but he gets across safely to the other side. The third man, the last, comes up and, seeing what had happened, said, "Now what?" He looked over and he said, "Lord," he said, "please, if you will give me the ability and the intelligence to get across this river safely." Poof! The man was changed into a woman. She read the map and walked across the bridge to the other side. All humor aside, we cannot and should not deny the prominence of the women and their ministry in the narratives of the Passion and the narratives of the Gospel. Nor can we deny anymore the presence and prominence of women in the ministry in the early church. For example, I don't know if you read the internet or whatever, but for instance, this past week or 2 weeks ago, there was a little article about they found a little parchment of paper somewhere a couple of years ago, and it was entitled "The Gospel of the Wife of Jesus." And there was a lot of They proved the authenticity of this parchment back to the 6th century and possibly to the 4th century. So it's an authentic document, but it's only a little parchment. And Karen King, who is the head of the Divinity School at Harvard Divinity School, who is one of the who was interested in getting this authenticated, said this doesn't prove anything about Jesus having a wife. And that's been a rumor in the church for centuries. It has nothing to do with that. But what it does tell us is the importance and the prominence of women in ministry in the Christian church, even in the early days. So we can't deny that. It was the women who were at the scene when Jesus was crucified, put to death. It was women who were, save John, one man that we know of, there was women who were there at the crucifixion when the spear went in, when he bled to death, when they took him down, when they took Jesus later on, when they took Jesus to Joseph of Arimathea's tomb that he had given for Jesus' burial. It was women who followed and knew where the tomb was. So appropriately, it was women first who came to the tomb on Easter Day. It was Mary Magdalene, the other Mary, but it was women who came and not men. Women came and got interesting enough, got the first message that Jesus was not there, that he was risen, and you'll be finding Jesus on the road of life out there. And go tell the apostles this. Tell them. So you can imagine in a patriarchal society like this, the women coming and being given the first resurrection experience, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, and then going and telling the men that they had seen this. And now, why didn't we see this? You can imagine that going on. It was the women who did it. There they were. I had a little rewrite of this Marcia and I did on Good Friday. For example, we were in the church somewhere else, and we went to a service, a Good Friday service, and I looked around after the service had started, and sure enough, there were 14 women and 2 men, counting me. It's a rewrite. It was women who were there, except for John. at the time of the crucifixion. So appropriately, I was sitting with a bunch of women. It was great. It was a rewrite of the original event. So there I was, and there they were, and there were the men. Now, you have to say after all this, where the heck were the men? You know? I mean, if the women were all there and stayed to the end and went through the gruesome stuff, where the heck were the men? Well, today's Gospel of John will tell you where they were. Those backsliders and cowards were up in a room behind locked doors for fear. That's where they were. The women weren't with them that we know of. They were the ones that gave them the message. But they were, John says, they were behind bolted, locked doors for fear. Well, we can identify with that. The gospel is true. You know, we all got fears. Some rational, some irrational. This was a rational fear. Jesus was just put to death for sedition. They charged him with sedition, so these people thought, whoa, the men did anyway, this is going to be a clean sweep if we're not careful, so we'll hightail it out of town and get into a room somewhere and lock ourselves in, and that's what they did. And that's where we pick them up this morning, when Jesus comes and makes a visitation with him as the risen Christ. So there they were, cowardly backsliders, hammerheads. They're out there behind those locked doors, and Jesus comes and says, peace be with you, breathes on them as God breathed the life into Adam. Jesus breathes life into the apostles, and they become the beginnings of the church. And here we are today. Now, very interesting. One of the N.T. Wright, who was an Anglican scholar, a New Testament scholar, wrote, and I've never seen this before anywhere, and I hope I get it right. He wrote, Easter is about hope with a capital H. Hope is a man who surprised the whole world and came from the future into the present. Hope is a person who came from the future into the present and shocked the whole world doing it. That's pretty good stuff. Think about that. At any rate, we all got fears. I've got fears, you've got fears. Some are rational, some are irrational, on and on and on. I got real deep fears. I have fears about my family, fears about sickness, fears about my health, fears about... I don't have fears about my job anymore, so that's out. I can cast that one out. I used to have fear about that, but not anymore. I have fears for the country. I have fears for a divided country. I have fears about all the hate that's prevalent in the country. I have deep fears about the racism, the evil of racism being prevalent in the country. During the week, we've had two nuts running around speaking trash, racism trash. And it's hard to believe in 2014 that we're doing this. It's like we're reliving the Civil War or something, you know. And I got real deep fears about what racism is doing to this country and what it will continue to do if we keep up this nonsense about racism and listening to these people in the media giving them all this press for being crazy, sort of thing. I got deep fears about that. I have deep fears about the church and the future of the church. Because Marcia and I go to a lot of different churches, and I have deep fears about the church because I sense a definite indifference and an apathy that's prevalent in the churches. Some of the churches, many of them are dead, but not only are they dead, they're being dead with solemnity, it seems. You know, you go in there and it's like Jesus didn't rise. Where are the resurrected people? Where are the people living the resurrection? And where are these people who are being faithful to their baptismal vows to be resurrected people, to be people of resurrection? I don't know. I keep praying about it, but every place I go, it seems I get depressed about it, because I have a fear about the future of the church. A fear that people will not come to grips with the resurrection, nor they will become serious about the baptismal vows they took to be the people of the resurrection in life, be risen people. The only places where you go and you see people in Christian churches and churches themselves, you see the resurrection when the people who don't have food are being fed, when people don't have shelter are being sheltered, when people who are sick are being visited, shelters are being visited, and things like this. That's the risen Christ, and that's where Jesus is living in his disciples. If you don't see it, you got deadness. It's not a resurrection. We got to be serious about the resurrection and about Easter. Easter has happened. I mean, we're part of it. I got in touch with the resurrection real early in my ministry. I was ordained in 1966. I went to a church in Champaign, Illinois, and the rector was a wonderful rector, but a week and a half after I got there, he decided to go to Michigan, to Traverse City, where he had a nice home on the lake, and thank you very much, you're in charge. And I was a deacon. I'd never been to a funeral before. I'd never been to a funeral. I had 6 burials when he was gone. 6. I came real fast to the resurrection. If it wasn't for the resurrection and the power, I wouldn't be here. And I can tell you, and exactly that through my 40 years of ordained minister. I mean, I survived 40 years in parish. Yeah, I really. In a lot of churches. Yeah. And I'm still here talking to you and preaching on the resurrection. So you can believe the resurrection because of me. So I'm walking proof of it. So there you are. Now you may need a little hard evidence about this. I know some of you people out there, if you need some hard evidence about it, here it is. Take this. The transformation of the people in the room. In the room, we had depressed, cowardly people, fearful, anxiety-prone. Something happened in that place. We know what it was now. It was the presence of Jesus himself. But they instantly blew through those doors and went out into the world, not fearful, but fearless and fierce disciples who were proclaiming the resurrection. Jesus is not dead. You didn't kill him. He's back. And this is the time that you need to get with the Christians. They were out there doing that hard stuff right there. Now, every one of the people that we know that were in that room, and probably others who were there and we don't know about, every one of those people died hideous, ignominious deaths. They threw them off temples, off the rooftops of buildings. They threw them to lions. They chopped off their heads. They crucified them upside down. They did everything to put them to death. Do you think for one moment that those people would go out proclaiming the resurrection if they knew it was a lie? Would they go to a hideous death knowing that this was not true? No, I don't think so. If I was in the room, I would. Would you? No. But this is it. Now, for the hard evidence, the same truth that caused the Reformation and the recovery of these disciples, the same transformation truth is true today that was true then. It's the same resurrection power, the same resurrection truth that made them fierce disciples for the resurrection of Jesus. It caused them to lead resurrected lives. The same truth, transformative truth, that raised up Dietrich Bonhoeffer, for example, in Germany, in Nazi Germany, a professorial kind of guy, a laid-back kind of guy, an intellectual kind of guy, did some nice writings and so forth, really out there doing just lovely work, transformed him into a fierce anti-Nazi, anti-Hitler Christian. The same transformative truth raised up Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa to be a fierce proclaimer of the resurrection and therefore anti-apartheid. The same transformative truth raised up Nelson Mandela, took him out of a prison cell and made him president of South Africa. In South Africa, another fierce anti-apartheid person. The same truth raised up Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in the South in this country to bring brotherhood, love, and justice as messages to be hope for the country. The same truth. And what was that truth? I'm glad you asked me. What was that transformative truth? It's this. The resurrection changed everything for these people. Everything. It said you cannot dig a hole and throw dirt or a boulder over it and say, that's it, that's the end, because it's not the end. And it could be a great beginning. And it has been from the beginning a great beginning. You can put all the boulders in the world, all the dirt over holes. It's not going to happen. It's a beginning. Life is about a never-ending possibility now with the resurrection. The same reformative truth. And what does the resurrection say to us here? The same thing it said to the disciples. But in the end, it is not. In the end, love will out. Love wins. God wins in the end. What the resurrection says is love is stronger than hate. and life is stronger than death, and mercy will trump judgment. Mercy will trump judgment. That's what it says. That's what the proclamation of Easter is to every generation. It's up to us to be open to that truth, to grasp that truth, be resurrected people, people of the resurrection. We shouldn't be called Christians. We should be called people of the resurrection, with resurrection power within us, going and doing what we need to do to make life a better place. What was the book a couple of years ago? In the end, love wins. The angel, the message at the tomb, do not be afraid. You can't wish away fear. You can't wish away fear. If the angels kept saying over and over again, just like at Christmas, have no fear, do not be afraid. That's not a command. It's a calming assurance that God is in charge, that love is stronger than hate, that life is stronger than death, that mercy is stronger and overcomes judgment. You can't wish it away. It's not an order. It's an assurance. You know, in the 1970s, my mother and dad moved to England. My dad took a job in Europe, and so the company put him in London for a while and then outside London for a little while. So we had young children. They hadn't seen their grandparents, so we went to England for the first time in the early 1970s. And I was taken with, well, a lot of things, but the number of pubs, for one thing. You know? And I don't know why I was taken with that. I'm from Massachusetts, you know. We have a lot of taverns in Massachusetts. We'd call them taverns. But the pubs were full of people and full of beer and ales and so forth, and a lot of different ales. And I was taken with the different beers and ales. And one of the 1970s, early 70s, one of the biggest in London and surrounding places was a beer called, or an ale called, Courage. Courage. And I loved that beer, but I loved also the advertisement for the beer. So simple but profound. It was simply this: take courage. Take courage, you know. This is what Easter is about. This is the proclamation, you know. I stand today with the angels at the tomb, giving you the same message. Do not fear. Love wins. God is in charge. Take courage. Take courage. You can still lead, but in spite of the illnesses, in spite of the oppressions, in spite of the hate, you can live through it and live productively and the things that you need to do because of the resurrection and the power therein. Take courage. So stand with the angels, and I say to you what was said then to the early disciples. Hallelujah, he is risen.